Islam, Islam, Islam. Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. I am Sister Tahida S. Najiyullah L. of CalifaMedia.com, MercyCharities.org, Moorish Science Temple of America, Soul Temple number 27, and a few other things. I'm coming to here today to share with the public a Sunday school class I presented this afternoon. I would have just presented the class itself, but halfway through the class, I realized I didn't hit the record button. So here I am recording. At least the beginning of this is the first half that wasn't recorded. So heads up, the second half of this video, or the second portion of this video, I will be dressed differently, same turban, because this is just later in the same day. When I came back to check, like, oh, half of my stuff is missing. So yeah, this is the relaxed evening me, In a minute, you're going to see the more high-strung daylight me. All right, that being said, I rise giving all perfect praise to the great God Allah, his forerunner in these times, Marcus Messiah Garvey, and honors to the prophet of these days, Noble Drew Ali, Islam. So, today I spoke and expounded upon the importance of guarding our senses, all right, especially in these days and times. And it actually does relate to the astrology that is currently going on overhead, and of which I will address. So if I'm looking down, I'm actually looking at my notes, right? And I don't know which side that they will be full screen on this thing. I don't know which side I'm gonna put them on yet, but yeah. So if I look down, it's because I'm looking at my note. Because why? I respect your time. So I'm not going to keep you. This won't be fast, but I won't keep you long. All right. So the title of this presentation is Guarding Your Senses. All right. Discrimination in the age or during the Moorish quickening. All right. So as we are instructed during each Sunday school, or encouraged and instructed to exercise our five senses. Like, okay, rather than presume that we know what that means, let's actually go into it as part of our Sunday school class, right? So, five senses. Creative fate gave to man, to spirit man, a soul that he might function on the soul of plane. Gave him a body of the flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. And that is Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Chapter 1, The Creation and Fall of Man. It's interesting that we have five senses, or we're told to exercise our five senses, correct, Islam? And we are taught that those five senses are the senses of taste, touch, smell, hearing, and sight. Five senses, right, Islam? And then those five senses gain entrance to our temple, right? Through 7 entrances, right? What 7 entrances? 2, 4, 6, 7, right? So, looking at that, I'm like, okay, 5 senses. And I'm seeing a pattern or a common thread running through these 5 senses. They're supposed to be separate, but I'm getting the impression that they're just 4 different ways of saying one thing. And I'll get to that, all right? So let's look at the entrances to our temple, all right? So the first 2 entrances, okay, are the eyes. So what has scripture to say about our eyes? The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And that is Holy Bible, Matthew 6:22 through 23. Islam. Moving on to the next 2 entrances. So we examined the eyes. Let's move on to the ears. All right. So it says, the scripture I found relating to the ears. He openeth not his ear unto slander, The faults and failings of men give a pain to his heart. All right. And that's from the Holy Quran, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, chapter 30, Holy Instructions from the Prophet. All right. Then I found a second scripture in our Quran relating to the ears, right? This is chapter 29. So I just read to you a passage from chapter 30. From chapter 29, the previous chapter, it reads, verse 14 and 15. His ears are open to the complaints of his subjects. He restraineth the hands of their oppressor, and he delivereth them from their tyranny. His people therefore look up to him as a father with reverence and joy. They consider him as the guardian of all they enjoy. So I thought that was kind of interesting. All right. So chapter 30 of the social duties, which is for everyone, said, keep those gates closed, right? On those interests, keep the gates closed to slander and anything that, you really don't need to be listening to, right? Guard your senses. But in the previous chapter, where it's magistrate and subject, all right, it's saying that the magistrate should have his ears open so he can be, I guess it's like how we say nowadays, he got his ears to the street, where you know what's going on so that you don't have to deal with issues when they become an issue. You can head them off at the pass just because you were listening and you were considerate of what you heard, right? So, I guess for everyone, shut that off to the nonsense. And for those in leadership positions, leave one ear open. Leadership is not just, leaders of people, of adults. Leadership also includes leading your home. Islam. All right. So moving on to the next temple entrance, the nostrils. So eyes, ears, moving on to the nostrils. Okay. Which I found extremely interesting. Like guarding the senses. I can understand a lot of stuff like, okay, eyes, you take heed, or you keep a real close watch, or you're really careful about what you looking at, reading, watching, right, on television or on screens. Your ears, you're real careful about what music and conversations you let into your temple, right? So nose, well, that should be an easy one, hopefully you're not putting anything in your nose. This should be easy. You staying away from foul odors. That should be easy, or you do the best you can, right? So I'm like, okay, let me look it up. Let's see what the scriptures say about the nose. And then I'm like, oh, well, here's a really kind of important one, why you need to guard this particular part of your body, or your temple. Nose. Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So, yeah, that's pretty important. I think that's pretty important, right? So, our first interaction with Allah was Allah using Allah's hands to form us. And then the second interaction was through the nose he just formed for us. That's Islam, right? I love it. And that's from the Holy Bible, Genesis 2:7. All right. Moving on to the last entrance, Islam, the mouth. So, some holy instruction from the Prophet, sincerity. Number 2, the tongue of the sincere is rooted in the heart. Hypocrisy and deceit have no place in his words. He blusheth at falsehood and is founded. But in speaking the truth, he hath a steady eye. He supporteth as a man the dignity of his character. To the arts of hypocrisy he scorneth to stoop. He is consistent with himself. He is never embarrassed. He hath courage enough for truth, but to lie he is afraid. He is far above the meanness of dissimulation. The words of his mouth are the thoughts of his heart. All right. And I think that's fitting, saving the best for last, so to speak. The words of his mouth are the thoughts of his heart. And I actually went into this at length during class today, where this was a biggie as far as guarding your senses. All right. Because what you let into your temple has a way of ruining your temple, Islam, so to speak. An example would be like, okay, the mouth part. I find that so important in these days and times, just because it says, I'm going to read that again. The words of his mouth are the thoughts of his heart. And if you listen to what's coming out the mouths of people nowadays, unfortunately, young, old, male, female, whatever's got going on, people are sick, right? And it's like it really is a separation of the wheats and the tares on so many different levels, right? You got the intelligent versus the not so intelligent, the brave versus the cowardly. And in this one, the sick versus the well, right? And you could tell you could tell the difference between people really like first impression by what comes out of their mouth. I'm a Gemini, so I'm a little partial to words, and I pay attention to what you're saying, right? And listen to the music that people are letting come out of their mouth. The lyrics are just disgusting, all right? I stay away from it. It's real easy to offend me, but I'm not going to say nothing. I'll just remove myself from the situation and take my children with me, right? So, yeah. In these days and times, again, people are showing you the sickness in their heart with the words they're sharing with you. And it might not even be something necessarily against you. It's just the energy behind what they're saying, right? And I suggest that we be more careful about what we're letting enter into our temple. Because again, let's use a church as an example. There's some gossiping, foul-mouthed heathen, right? Say whatever they feel like when they feel like, because to each their own. They came into the church and want to have a conversation. What is that getting ready to do to the entire congregation? Now, if you're letting people's nonsense get into your eyes, your ears, and I guess your nose? Anyway, your eyes and your ears, what is that going to do to the resident in your temple, Islam? So, entrances, right? So we examined the 5 senses. Now I'll get to that in a second, right? And how we're supposed to be protecting this temple, right? This is a gift from Allah. Like I'm listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson recently, and many people have made this comparison. The odds of your existence, all right? Not just after birth, how you managed your parents kept you alive and you managed to survive to adulthood. Not just that. The fact that you managed to become a zygote in the first place is unbelievable, right? So you were gifted a body, right? And everything enters through this temple, right? And there are some other entrances. For the sake of children that may be watching, I'm not going to examine those today I don't know how to put this, I'm going to leave that alone. All right. So, we're going to let's look at these entrances, right? So I'm just like, okay, entrance. Now that I know what I'm talking about, what is this entrance thing? Let's not presume that we know what entrance means, because everybody, unless we all looked it up in a common dictionary, we're probably working off of our own personal definition. So I went ahead and looked it up. And this is from Truth. I think it's truthsocial.net. It's not Truth Social. I have to look up the actual name. It'll be linked in the description, or I'll put it in the video somewhere. The metaphysical, or you can just Google it. I looked up the metaphysical definition of the term entrances, and it returned the metaphysical meaning of the word gate. Okay. Let me make sure I did that right. Entrance sent me straight to gate. Okay, I'll accept that, right? And that definition of gate returned 3 definitions of its own, right? So, looking up entrances, taken to gate, the metaphysical meaning of it, right? And the 3 results that were returned were gate narrow, gate wide, and gate 12. I'm going to read the definitions to you. All right. So gate narrow, the spiritual mind, which requires absolute conformity to truth and measures all things by the gauge of truth. The way is straightened because it requires only truth to be recognized, and it rules out untruth or evil. Okay? My interpretation, I have a certain code I live by. All right? My code is Islamism. I love my code because my code allows me to delve into other codes as long as they've, been brought by true, actual divine prophets. Not people that got enough clout and declared themselves a prophet. Most prophets don't declare themselves a prophet. They actually try to run from it. All right. So I have a code. My code is Islamism, right? And thank you Allah, where my code allows me to dip into Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Confucianism, Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, all that good stuff, right? Because it's truth. It's teachings from the ancients that have been tried by the young and the dumb, and they were passed on to their children when they realized, this is why you don't do this. So this has persisted. It still holds true. And it's been a very good guide for myself and all these others that came before me. If whatever you're presenting cannot pass this code, this checklist, I don't want nothing to do with it. That's just me. And it leads to a very peaceful, somewhat prosperous life, right? It's actually, sometimes I feel like I'm cheating, right? Like sometimes I just got to sit there and wait and let stuff pass by so other stuff has the opportunity to come in. And it happens pretty fast because I didn't entertain nonsense. Islam. Speaking of nonsense, the next definition, gate wide, defined as the easy negative way by which men conform to sense consciousness and the pleasures of the world, with the result that their mind muscle becomes soft and flabby. When the trials come, men find that they are not able to cope with them, right? So I'm reminded of that movie WALL-E. If anybody remembers that, when humans, I'll say mankind, ruined the planet and they had to leave for a while. A little robot went out there to help them come home. Anyway, so you have all of these flabby people in chairs. All it took was one of those chairs to get tipped over, and that was it. They got to lay there like a beached whale, wait for somebody to help them, because they never took when they had the opportunity, they didn't take it to do something to improve on themselves. They always took the easy route, right? So wide is the way to hell, right? It's pretty easy to get down that road, but then you're free to do what you want, but of course you're free to suffer the consequences as well. The narrow road is very Saturnian, right? Where it's a lot of hard work, but you gain experience and it's character building, and you can be proud of what you got, what you have accomplished, what you've come through. Even if you don't have anything in your hand, you have something in your temple. Versus the wide road, which is more like Jupiter, right? Full of hot air. All promise, not that much performance. Because it's a gas planet. All it's a big giant ball of gas. Can't even land on it. It's all hype. That's the wide way. All right. So gates 12. Yeah, I was like, gates 12. What is that? I've heard of the narrow gate, and I've heard of the wide gate. What's gates 12, right? Gates 12. The 12 faculties of the mind. Before these faculties become avenues through which we enter into the city of God, they must be purified with the standards of spirit. Now, this entry had a whole bunch of links on it that I'm going to have to go through on another time. One of them being the city of God. What is that? I hope it's what I think it is, right? But I'm like, okay, 12 faculties. I've never heard of those before, but they relate to the senses, right? because I'm just trying to find out what gates, is there any metaphysical or spiritual connection with entrances, which I was led to gates. And now I'm following this to faculties. What are these 12 faculties, right? So it says metaphysical meaning of faculty. Faculty, spiritual, an individualized center of God consciousness. The 12 faculties or ideas in divine mind are faith, strength, wisdom or judgment, love, power, imagination, understanding, will, order or law, zeal, renunciation, and life. Man takes control of his faculties through exercising the will. All right. And actually, this is where I realized that I had forgotten to press the record button. So I'm going to start with the beginning of this definition. The next definition that was attached to faculty. And then it will resume with the recording from earlier this afternoon. So there are two ways to develop the spiritual faculties: through the evolutionary law of experience and trial, the school of the 12 sons of Jacob, or by the direct power of the word, or the I am, the purifying of the 12 apostles of Jesus. The law of Moses and the experiences of the children of Israel under the old dispensation represent the first. All right. That's the experience and trial. The law of experience and trial. Okay. The transforming power of the true word or gospel of Jesus Christ as set forth in the New Testament is the second one, or the direct power of the word. All right. And I'm going to stop it right there and allow myself to pick this up. Peace and love, and enjoy the rest, y'all. I'll see y'all next time. Peace. Standing, will, order or law, zeal, renunciation, and life. So those are the 12 faculties of the mind, which is interesting because I'm going to have to look into it. Now that I think about it, I wonder if they correspond to the 12 stations or the 12 houses of the zodiac. I'm just wondering. And please don't let me stop y'all from looking into that, please. All right. Okay. So there are two ways to develop the spiritual faculties: through the evolutionary law of experience and trial, and it has in parentheses the school of the 12 sons of Jacob. There's the astrology. Wow, there's the astrology right there. Or by the direct power of the word, or the I am, and in parentheses, the purifying of the 12 apostles of Jesus. The law of Moses and the experience of the children of Israel under the old dispensation represent the first and transforming power of the true word or gospel of Jesus Christ. Hold on. Okay, I had to turn that off. Okay. Okay, where was I? Okay, the transforming power of the true word or gospel of Jesus Christ as set forth in the New Testament is the second. Let me start that over. Okay, so the law of Moses and the experience of the children of Israel in the old dispensation represents the first, the first or the transforming power of the word, or the gospel of Jesus Christ is set forth in the New Testament is the second of the two ways to develop the spiritual faculties. So you can either look at what the Old Testament or the New Testament. That's what I'm getting from that. All right. When divine mind is looked to as the one and only guide, the faculties of man are developed in an orderly manner through the power of the word. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under law, but under grace. And that's Romans 6:14. All right. So that's the meaning of faculty, which I got to from looking up the meaning of gate, which I got to from looking up the meaning of entrance. Yeah, I love following breadcrumbs. And I'm not done yet because I want to see where these faculties fit into each of the houses of the zodiac. Okay, so I'll continue with entrances, right? Because I'm like in trance. Like, what does that mean? Like, that trance part keeps sticking out to me because isn't that how people end up? Like, a trance is like a hypnosis, right? How do you get there? Somebody drugged you. You smelled something. You ate something. You heard something. They waved a watch in your face. It's all through these gates where you get into trances, right? So it says a trance is an altered state of consciousness, of relaxation, in which you feel as if you are letting go of the wheel of your life and letting something else take over. Your mind is extremely susceptible to suggestion in this state. You are conscious, but you are more of an observer. Wow. I'm gonna let y'all do with that what you will. But that's the definition of trance. I know what I take from that is that again, it depends on what you're doing, right? The way I do it, I guard my entrances, I guard my senses, right? And I'm very picky what I read. I'm very picky what I watch. I'm extremely picky about what I eat and drink, right? I'm always burning incense because I live in Lafayette, Indiana. This town stinks. So I'm all, no, I'm not dealing with it, that kind of thing. So, and it results in a very comfortable life. All right. That's probably why I don't like leaving the house, because it's more comfortable being at the house. Right. And then another thing that I find from guarding your senses, right? By having the right diet, right? By right diet, I mean, what media are you consuming? Be careful what you're letting through your eyes and your ears, because they take root in your mind. Like some theorists, I'm not going to call them conspiracy theorists. Some people theorize that certain music puts you in a certain mind. It's like, yes, the frequency is messing you up, but they're suggesting some of this music, these noises, I'm not calling it music, some of this noise has stuff riding on those frequencies. I'm like, huh? Like, yeah, like, how there can be light beings like angels and stuff? Yeah, you don't think like malevolent beings can't travel the same way? Yeah, why do you think people get aggressive? But like the song might not even be saying anything aggressive, but it gets them all riled up and they want to go beat something. So what got into your mind, right? What was traveling on those waves? And that can come in through music, reading, anything, right? Because people be messing with the way they like place words. Like sometimes you'll sit and put a book out and you can see pictures in between the lines. Yeah, be careful. The other media or right diet, hygiene, right? This is all still dealing with the physical man, all right? By hygiene, of course, keep yourself clean, but what are you cleaning yourself with, right? Do you have a filter on your shower? I'm dreaming of the day when I have a filter for the whole house, right? What kind of soap are you using? Who are you getting that soap from? Did they have a bad day right before somebody handed you that package? That kind of thing. Be careful. The other one, of course, is sustenance. Of course, by right diet, of course, that includes what kind of food are you consuming, right? Oh, well, I'm a vegan vegetarian. Do you open a bunch of boxes, cans, and packages? That don't count, right? Because that pork eating farmer over there is probably healthier than you because he's not eating, excuse my language, machine poop. That's what processed food is. It's machine poop. Prove me wrong. All right. So clean food, clean water, air as best you can, because I don't know if y'all been noticing, it looks like there's a concerted effort to destroy this land before certain people have to be ejected from this land, right? I don't know if you heard that there was a second train explosion, another chemical train explosion in Ohio. Like, are you kidding me? Really? Okay, now this, nothing to see here. Whatever. It's obvious y'all trying to, burn down the house before you got to try to go back to your own, rather than give it back to us. All right. So I'm encouraging people to circumscribe your passions, right? Resist urges such as doom scrolling, right? Where you searching for what happened with that event, that horrible event where hundreds of people were harmed. You want an update. Don't do that. I mean, stay informed, but I find information. If it's any of your business, you probably won't have to ask for it. That's in my experience, right? Another urge to resist, doubtful thinking, right? That's an easy one for Moors to slip into. Realistic consideration is fine. Doubtful thinking is something else, all right? Engaging in or being in the presence of the wrong people, all right? You know, of toxic individuals, how they just come in the room and you can actually see the lights lower and nobody touched anything, that kind of thing. You know those people. I don't even have to go into that, all right? And then if you're actually a sincere Moor, they're not going to want to be around you anyway. All right. So now that we've examined exercising the 5 senses. Oh, before I move on, I wanted to touch on a value that I found in guarding your senses. Like how I'm like extremely restrictive on myself, right? And I'm finding, based on my feedback from other people, outside others, I come off as real and mature, right? Or younger than my age. And I'm like, wow, does that mean that I've been maintaining my innocence to an extent, as much as possible, right? Because I'll be 46 this year, right? And I look at the 46 and 45-year-olds around me, and they're extremely angry. They always got something to complain about. They always got some issue that they're dealing with. I'm like, I got issues too, but you want to hear a joke, right? I heard this dope joke. You know, I have a messed up story you might enjoy to get your mind off of that, right? Don't you know about? No, I haven't heard anything about that. What is that? Oh, it has absolutely nothing to do with me, right? That sounds like a you problem. So I'm gonna leave it like a you problem, that kind of thing. You know, if I can help, I will. But other than that, it's like, I find that whatever is my business finds me, right? And it makes for a very light life, all right? That's why I always say, if people know me, it's like, yeah, what you need? Because I don't know that many people, right? On purpose, that kind of thing. So now that I get off that tangent, back to the 5 senses real quick. And I'm doing good. So exercise the 5 senses. And I'm like, 5 senses. So what are these 5 senses we're supposed to have, right? Supposedly they're touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing, right? And then I'm thinking about it like those are all versions of one sense, the sense of touch. All of those are sense of touch. What you mean? Well, when do you smell something? What has to happen first? Air has to touch your nose. Well, the actual scientific description is there are molecules in the air, right? And they are brought to your nose where they make contact with receptacles. Your brain interprets that as a smell, which is why I'm like, I have lots of air freshener, especially in the bathroom, because when you consider that and then you go into a funky bathroom, so what's going in your nose? All right. So, yes, little pieces of something. So that's touch. Air, the particles in the air have to touch your nose in order for you to smell something, right? The flavor has to touch your tongue in order for you to taste. Something has to touch your tongue, right? Not necessarily, right? But in this sense, like the sense of taste, I'm gonna get into that. The sense of taste, something has to touch your tongue in order for it to happen. And then sight. In order for you to see, light has to bounce off of something, which is a form of touch, right? And then bounce into your eye, which is also a form of touch, right? When that's not happening, it's called darkness, right? When nothing's touching your eyes, you can't see anything, right? Yeah, so close your eyes. What do you see? Because no light is touching it. That's a form of touch, right? Sound waves. You can actually see sound waves, right? Especially if you've been to like a really live concert, you know you can feel them. And if you look at the speaker, you can actually see them, right? You look at water, you can see the sound waves. So in order for you to hear anything, it has to touch your eardrum. It has to shake that hammer in your ear, right? So something has to be touched. So the 5 senses that we've been encouraged to say are senses, that's only one sense, right? And they're all tied to the physical body, which is interesting because according to our Holy Quran, man himself is not the body, nor is he the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. All right. And that's from chapter 1 of the Holy Quran, Creation and Fall of Man. So we are encouraged and taught that we have 5 senses, which I theorize is only one variation or 4 variations on one sense, the sense of touch, right? And then there's this thing called the 6th sense. Which one? Because it's like everything that's not those 5 is referred to as a 6th sense. And there's a whole bunch of them. All right. So I looked up 6th sense before I started. I'm like, okay, I know what I think, but let me look up a widely accepted definition of it. So 6th sense came back with extra sensory perception. Not sensory, extra sensory, which I found out very interesting. So your 6th sense is extra sensory, even though it's a sense. Okay, or ESP is also called 6th sense. It is a claimed paranormal ability pertaining to reception of information not gained through the recognized physical senses, but sensed through the mind. And that's from wikipedia.org. And I found that interesting because first, according to the Quran, man is a thought of Allah, right? All thoughts of Allah are infinite. They are not measured up by time, for things that are connected with time begin and end. The thoughts of Allah are everlasting, of the past unto the never-ending days to come. And so is man, the spirit man, all right? So a body is a finite thing. Man is mind, all right? And if man is mind and Allah is man is a thought of Allah. Okay, so we somehow have a connection to Allah's mind. So this extra sensory thing is sounding a lot more legit than the sensory thing. And I'm like, that sense is, it's like you're describing 4 senses of touch, right? And I'm like, well, what about the sense of humor? Right? That doesn't involve seeing, I mean, I guess I got to hear something, but I don't necessarily, I can think of a joke and laugh. I have a sense of humor, right? What is that? Same thing with sense of humor. I have a sense of timing. I know just when if somebody say something, gotcha, I'm a clown you off of what you just said. Sense of timing, right? And along those lines, a sense of rhythm, right? A sense of doom. What does that have to do with your physical senses, right? And let's fashion sense. Thank you. And I'm just listening so all of these are, of course, clairvoyance, clairaudience. That's like the one that everybody thinks of. But I'm like, well, okay, yeah, there's clairvoyance and clairaudience, but what about your sense of humor, your sense of passion, your sense of all that stuff that has nothing to do with, a blind person can have a blind and deaf person can have a sense of humor. How did they get that? Right? A sense of empathy. Isn't love a sense? I can sense somebody loves me just by thinking about them. And I find it interesting. So y'all saying it's 5 of this one thing. And then this one thing, I got all these different variations that don't have nothing to do with each other. So I think it's backwards, And those are just a few of them. I remember seeing in something once, I got to find it, where they said the Egyptians said touch one time. And then in addition to that, there were 359 other senses that they listed. I got to find that documentary. Because I'm like, it was either 359 or 179 because it either equaled 180 or 360. But I remember, that's why I remembered it. Because I'm like, well, first of all, that's a lot of senses. And then these senses that they were listing were stuff like telepathy. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, that's why their hieroglyphics were pictures, because that's what they were shooting into each other's minds. Oh, okay. I'm not going to keep going into that, maybe later, right? So the 6th sense. So what? Why do we need to guard our senses? All right. And here comes the astrology. So if you aren't aware, this past March 7th, 2023, Saturn entered into the sign. It left Aquarius and entered into the sign of Pisces. Okay. What does Pisces rule or Saturn rule? Saturn rules boundaries, borders, bones, and teeth. Boundaries and borders, right? Skin, boundary. Foundations, reality, elders, chronological time, government authority, and swarthy people. Pisces rules illusion, fantasy, imagination, spirituality, dissolving boundaries, dissolving time, washing away, sleep, alcohol, self-undoing, self-poisoning, hidden places such as prisons, hospitals, and religious places like temples and churches. All right. So that's why I wanted to talk about guarding your senses, right? Because if you can't feel it, there is a Moorish quickening going on, right? Quickening is, oh, I feel this baby's alive, it's viable, and I should start making preparations for its impending arrival, right? The quickening. I find that we have just a horrible link to the pale skinned European, right? Because I couldn't help notice all my life, like, wow, everybody got problems with y'all, but ain't nobody got problems with y'all the way we got problems with y'all, right? And we ain't even doing nothing to y'all, so it must be something personal. Then I grew up, nope, it's something spiritual, right? So if I'm in that sense, if I can feel it, I know you can feel it, right? And in that sense, I'm feeling like y'all about to start coming hard on the Moors, right? And this is not just pale-skinned Europeans. This is also anybody harboring their mindset. So you ain't gonna know who it's coming from. So what's being challenged with this Saturn in Pisces? Because I like to look at astrology from our perspective, the Moorish perspective. So structures, ideals, practices, foundations, and swarthy people will be tested. Who were tested during Saturn's transit in Aquarius? You'll be the most affected. So what were you working on starting in 2020, right? Because Saturn went into Aquarius right around the same time that COVID hit. I think it happened like the same time. Like it was like it went into Aquarius and then they announced the lockdowns, right? Boundaries on wider societies. Did that not happen? All right. And so now I don't know if you heard them trying to be like, oh, here's where the planetary stuff comes in. So just hold on to that thought about how when Saturn went into Aquarius, Saturn boundaries, Aquarius, the wider society, they locked down, put boundaries around people being in wider society, right? Now it's left that, and boundaries are dissolving, right? And people are trying to control fantasy and illusion, right? And one of these fantasies they're trying to control is trying to declare COVID amnesty for all the people that encouraged us to be locked down. They say, oh, just forget it. We know better. You know, nobody should have to go to jail for making children breathe in carbon dioxide for 5 hours a day for 5 days a week. Nobody should get in trouble for that. Yeah, you dreaming out of season, right? I vote for y'all to get caught up. How about that? So there will be restrictions or strengthening, right? Either because Saturn either locks it down or makes it stronger, right? Of governmental structure, especially those based in religion. Okay? Get ready for the thought police to arrive. Okay, my battery about to die. This is perfect because I'm on the last couple of slides. Okay, so advice for this transit. Be mindful of what you're absorbing because Pisces is a water sign, right? And it's dissolving. Even though Saturn has power, it's weakened. It's a cold, dry planet in a cold, wet sign. All right. So it could go either way. There's a bunch of stuff it could really go either way. And because it's Pisces, you don't really, it's like, go ahead and say what you think it's going to be. And then we're going to watch for that not to happen. Right? Or the opposite to happen. So I'm just making some suggestions just based on because I've been through Saturn and Pisces. I think the last time it entered Pisces, I just graduated from high school. So yeah, I remember that time. So, and I remember doing this stuff because I was like, yeah, none of this looks right to me. And you trying to cross some boundaries that I enjoy having, that kind of thing. So I just started college. And here's some of the stuff that I was engaging in. Be mindful of what you're absorbing, right? Because Pisces is it's like a sponge, right? We have to be watching what you're drinking, right? Even if you're drinking water, if you watch your drink. This is about to be a really messed up time, right? Be careful of what you're watching, right? Because you're just going to be more inclined to accepting fantastic ideas. Like, yeah, I guess that could happen, right? Even though before you might have been like, man, ain't no way, that kind of thing. And be careful of who you're around, okay? Because again, Scorpio rules poison. Pisces rules the ingestion of that poison by your own hand, all right? Rules undoing. Don't do that. All right. So you're picking up energies, whether you like it or not. Be mindful of the energies around you. All right. I'm about to wrap this up. So Sixth Sense, number 9 I don't know where this is from. I didn't put it in there. Jesus said, the holy breath cannot be seen with mortal eyes, nor can man see the spirits of the Holy One. So those 5 senses ain't going to help you see the holy breath. All right. It's something you just have to extrasensory, right? Which seems to me those are the real senses, right? So, okay, wrapping up. From the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, chapter 8, Jesus reveals to the people of their sinful ways. Number 9. Oh, I guess that was it. I put it in there already. That was from that chapter. And Jesus said, the holy breath cannot be seen with mortal eyes, nor can man see the spirits of the Holy One. Can't see the Holy One. You got to feel it. And not with any body thing, right? Because a lot of people meet Allah when they leave this body in the dream realm. So how does that work, right? Let's see. Chapter 11. Jesus and Barada. Together they read the sacred books. Number 24 through 26. Men call these ether planes and the planes of protoplast, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and of cherubim. These planes, with all their teeming thoughts of Allah, are never seen by the eyes of man in flesh. They are composed of substance far too fine for fleshy eyes to see, and they will constitute the soul of things. And with the eyes of the soul, all creatures see. With the eyes of the soul, all creatures see these ether planes and all forms of life. And again, that's chapter 11. Verses 24 through 26. And I'm going to wrap it up, end it with the Hadith and Prophecy of Noble Ali, number 85. Brother J. Blakely Bay told the Moors that the Holy Prophet said, it doesn't make any difference which way things look like they're going. It's all going to end up in the hands of the Asiatics. And with that, I yield. Peace. Thanks, Moors. Appreciate that. Oh, questions, comments, any questions? I forgot about that part. Inviting questions.
Well, is there anything good that's going to happen within this next thing?
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things. And I'm really talking to anybody with Libra placements. Y'all been going through it for like the last 7 years. All right? Yeah. About 7 years. So think of it like this. You're coming out of it. This can't be forever. So you gonna come out of it, and whoever ain't been up in it about to go up in it. So if you've been like, man, these last 7 years been good, brace yourself. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well,
dissolving. Stuff is dissolving. So if you have stuff that you know is sure and the foundation is secure, go look at it. All right. Unless you have a Libra, Aries, or Cancer placement, you're probably straight because you've been forced to make sure those foundations are there. Even though they might look shaky right now, they are there. You're about to find out how strong they are, because Pisces also rules the stuff you can't see. It's behind you, behind the first house. You can't see it.
All right.
Islam. Oh, and if y'all want, hit me up and I'll let you know. Send me your chart and I'll let you know what areas you need to look out for. I'm not going to do your chart. I'm going to be like, look, go research this, go research that, go research that. Right? That kind of thing. Yeah. So with that, I yield. Peace and love, y'all.
To our sister.
Islam.
Our assistant grand chief, Islam.